Okay then, so we have our form at the minute and we're listing for a submit event on that form right here, and then we're just preventing the default action. Now what I want to happen after this is to check what the user has typed into this field and validate it using some simple validation and some regex. So what I'd like, for example, is for the username to be between 6 and 12 characters in length and only contain uppercase or lowercase letters, no numbers and no symbols. So the first thing we need to do is get a handle on the actual value of the username. So remember, we can do that by getting the form up here. So we'll say form, which we already have a reference to. Oops, not in capitals, form. Then the name of the input field, which is down here, username. So let's grab that, dot username, then use dot value, and that gets us the value inside the field. Now what we want to do is store this in a constant. I'll call it username. So we have that. Then we want to test this value, what a user types in, against a regex pattern, which describes what I just said. So 6 to 12 characters long and only letters, uppercase or lowercase. So let's create another constant now, first of all, called username pattern, and set this equal to some kind of regex pattern. So remember, always starts and ends with a /. Now inside the regex, we can say, first of all, a caret to say this must begin at the start, and then a $sign to say this must also be at the end of the input field, so that it means it can't have anything either side of this actual value that passes. Okay then, so first of all, we need a character set to say we want A to Z. So I'll do that in lowercase, first of all, and also uppercase. And then we also need our curly braces to say the length. It's going to be between 6 and 12 characters long. So there we go. That is our regular expression. Dead simple. Now what we need to do is test the value right here against this. And if a user types in a valid username that does pass this regular expression, then what I want to do is feedback some good information like that username is valid. If it doesn't pass the test, then what I'll do is feedback some different information to say that it must contain only letters and be between 6 and 12 characters. So then, remember the test method, it returns a Boolean. So since it returns a Boolean, we can check that inside an if statement. So I'm going to say right now, if, and then I'm going to grab the username pattern and use the method, use the method called test. And in here, we'll pass in the username, which is up here, the value they type in. So remember, this returns true if it passes that test, and it returns false if it doesn't pass that test. So right here, I'm going to feedback good info, and down here, we need an else clause, and then we're going to feedback some different info to the user. So we'll say feedback help info. Okay. So before we do that, what we need to do is decide where we're actually going to feed back this information to a user. Now, I think it would make sense to do it underneath the submit button. So I'm going to come under here and create a div with a class of feedback, like so. So this is where our feedback will go, the text inside this div. Now over here, we'll get a reference to that first of all. So I'll call this feedback and set it equal to documents.query selector, and inside here we want the feedback div. Okay, so we have that reference now. So if this passes and we want to feedback some good information, what we can do is take the feedback reference right here and then set its text content equal to something. That username is valid, like so, and down here we can say feedback.text content and set that equal to something else, and we'll say username must contain letters only and be between 6 and 12 characters. Oops, have I spelled that right? Characters long. Okay, so let's save that and test this out. Over here, I'm going to do something that is not valid first of all. So I'll say something like that. It has numbers, so it's not valid. And we can see the username must contain letters and be between 6 and 12 characters long. So if I take off these and I'll take off Y, we still get that feedback because it's now 5 characters long. But if I put on the Y again and press submit, then we see that username is valid. So there we go, my friends. That is some basic validation using a regular expression and just a simple method called dot test.